Hi, I'm Janine Wolfe. I wanted to talk to you today about a common theme I see among a lot of women that I work with, women of all ages. It has to do with being polite. Our society teaches us that women should be polite. We're taught from a very early age to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and please and thank you, and all of those things. And it gets drilled into us at such an early age that it becomes sort of pervasive in our thinking, and we forget that we actually have a choice about when to apply politeness, when it's appropriate, and when it isn't. So let me start with an example. Actually, I'm going to give you several examples. The first example is a woman in a dark parking garage waiting for the elevator to get to her destination. When the elevator door opens up, there's a man inside. Her alarm bells go off in her head and she thinks, oh, this may not be very safe, but I don't want to hurt his feelings, so I'm going to get inside and hope for the best. And she gets in the elevator. Another example is a woman who's been through a divorce and she's going to a social gathering where there's going to be a lot of people she hasn't seen since the divorce. She gets there and all kinds of people are asking her questions. She doesn't know what to say. She ends up answering a lot of questions that are pretty intrusive. It spoils the event for her and she doesn't feel very good about the whole thing when she goes home. And the third example is going to be about a young woman who had a difficult time in her life where she used self-harm as a form of coping. She's been in treatment, and so now she's learned healthier coping skills, and she has scars from that self-harm. And she goes out in public, and at times people, strangers, will come up and ask her about those scars. And she doesn't really want to be rude. She thinks the polite thing to do is answer their questions. So she talks to them about this deeply personal aspect of her life. So, as you can see, these are three different examples where women have put politeness ahead of everything else. Without even thinking about it, so many times we go ahead and answer questions or put ourselves in situations that aren't in our best interest, but we just sort of do it automatically because that's what we think we're supposed to do. So now let's look at those same three scenarios if we were trying to look at politeness from a different perspective. So the first scenario, the woman at the elevator doors open up, she sees the man and feels uncomfortable and says, oh, I'm just going to wait for the next car if you want to go ahead. And the doors close and he moves on. In the divorce example, before going to that social gathering, the divorced woman decides what she's comfortable sharing, who she's comfortable sharing with. So she might come up with a phrase that she says to someone such as, that's not something I really want to discuss today. And she ends the sentence. For someone who she does want support from, but maybe not during this situation, she could say, that's not something I want to discuss today, but I would love to get together sometime so we could talk. Again, she's taken advantage of choosing her politeness and standing up for herself by setting some healthy boundaries. And in the situation with the young woman with the scars, she might have a phrase that she's memorized on the ready that says something like, that's something that's pretty personal that I don't discuss with others, and she changes the subject or moves on. So the main thing to remember when you're looking at these three examples is that your self-esteem, your well-being, and your safety do get to come first over politeness. Politeness is wonderful when it's used with discretion. But if you think about it, with the example of the divorced woman and the young woman with scars, the people who are asking those questions are not being polite to begin with. They're asking intrusive questions that they probably know on some level are intrusive, but their need for information or curiosity gets the best of them, and they go ahead and answer those questions. With the example of the elevator, that's a clear example of needing to put safety first. And while that man may or may not be offended, it really doesn't matter. You need to put your safety first. So a common response when I have these types of discussions with clients is, wow, that sounds really rude. And on the outset, it can sound rude. But if you think about it, it's a matter of readjusting your perception of the world and your perspective on what is right for you and what rights you have for yourself. So while someone is asking you a rude question, that doesn't mean you have to be polite and answer those questions or put yourself in a situation that doesn't feel right because you haven't planned ahead. So one of the ways I like to work with clients is we talk about situations like this. We plan ahead. So we talk about the importance of safety and ways to stand up for yourself or excuse yourself from situations that may not be comfortable or safe. And also in the situation of the woman with the divorce and the young woman with scars, we talk about things in advance. So going to that social event, the woman could decide who she would like to talk to about her divorce, who she wouldn't, and what information she'd like to share. So that way she can be on the ready. She's got that phrase that she's memorized on the tip of her tongue, and it comes out naturally and easily, and it starts feeling better the more she does it. The same thing with the young woman with scars. She can choose that she's not going to share that information with strangers, so she has a phrase on the ready, on the tip of her tongue, that she can use to make sure she sets healthy boundaries for herself and doesn't allow strangers to intrude upon her. So what I'd like for you to do is I would love if you would have some discussions with some of the women in your life. Talk about some of these issues and some of these examples. Find out if you or they are putting yourselves in situations where you're allowing politeness to be more important than anything else, and then practice together ways that you can overcome that. Thanks for watching.